Once you realize and put into practice that joy is a choice you get to make every single day and in every single moment of your day, your entire life changes. That's how you can really find the joy and tap more into joy whenever you need to reconnect to that joyful feeling.
Hello, and welcome back to Seek the Joy podcast. Happy Seek the Joy Tuesday. I'm your host, Sydney Weiss, and guys, today we are taking it all the way back to episode 12 of the podcast with Lauren Sanders, the creator of the I Am Journal. And if you're not familiar with the I Am Journal, it's this beautiful manifestation journal that helps you transform your thoughts, raise your vibrational energy, deepen your spiritual journey and practice, and really reprogram your subconscious mind so that you're able to manifest with ease. And when this episode originally aired, it was the end of 2017, which in many ways was a totally transformative year for me and for so many of us. And I could feel at the time that 2018 was going to be a big year. I don't know. I thought we're on the verge of something really great. And I think I was right. It was a huge year for me, for this show, for so many of us. And so much has really shifted and changed since this episode originally aired on December 26, 2017, which feels literally like 10 years ago. And so it's really wonderful to be able to sit down and re-listen to this episode and hear how much I've grown and how much we've grown as a show since that time. And so I decided to re-air this episode with Lauren for a couple of reasons. For one, it's one of my favorite conversations and episodes to date. Lauren is really such an incredible light, and she's brought such an amazing gift into this world in the form of the I Am Journal. And I'm so grateful that we really connected at the beginning of my Seek the Joy journey. It was really only like 3 months after I started this show and after she had started launching the I Am Journal that we connected. And so it's been wonderful to watch her grow and bring the I Am Journal to so many people over the last year. And so the other day, I was sitting at work and I realized that there are so many new listeners to the show and friends of the show, and this community has just grown so much over the last year, and there are guests and episodes that you might have missed. And so it felt like a no-brainer to want to start to maybe re-air some of these conversations from pretty early on that have really left such a strong impact on me. And the other reason why I decided to re-air this episode is because the direction of the show is about to change in a really beautiful way. We're still going to have the same conversations and storytelling and solo episodes, but I am really feeling the nudge to share more about my spiritual journey and more about my healing journey. And I'm a little nervous. I don't know if you can tell. I'm like kind of out of breath, but this is really going to kick off this month with a series of conversations with my spiritual teachers, and I am so excited. I can't even tell you. And so sharing a conversation about manifestation and spirituality just felt like a no-brainer. And so in this week's episode, Lauren and I really chat all about her journey creating the I Am Journal, the inspiration behind it, and the role that manifestation has really played in her life. Lauren breaks down the connection between manifestation and joy, acting from alignment, and the power of the words we put after our I am. She also shares with us her journaling and meditation practice, the role of gratitude in her life. We open up about our spiritual journeys. She shares her joy with us and so much more. So before we dive into this week's new episode, I've got to thank this week's sponsor, Doll Holistic Health. I am so excited to partner with Doll Holistic Health and share them with the Seek the Joy community. It was started by Amanda and Christopher Doll after overcoming their own struggle with Lyme disease, and they offer Reiki sessions and classes, biomagnetic pair therapy, and coaching services to really bring people to a place of healing and happiness. You know, when we're beginning to embark on our own healing and spiritual journeys, it's really important to check in with yourself. What do you need? What is your body or your mind asking for? What are your limitations in any given moment? What do you need more of? And so Amanda and Christopher really take all of this into account. Some people want a quiet place to relax and be at peace, and others want more guidance on their spiritual path. And Amanda and Christopher really look at this and they take it into account, and every client is given the grace and time to work towards their personal healing goals with gentle guidance. And they can work with clients in person or over the phone. They're based out of San Diego, California, and they offer a complimentary call to answer any questions that you might have before scheduling a session. And I'm so excited because they are offering, this is so cool, they are offering Seek the Joy podcast listeners 20% off your first appointment. Just use the code SeekTheJoy20 at checkout. And to learn more about Amanda and Christopher and their journey and Doll Holistic Health, visit dollholistichealth.com for details on services and scheduling, and I will include all of their information as well as that promo code in the show notes for today's episode. All right, guys, that's it. I'm going to share the iTunes review of the week in the outro. I'm going to share it with you on the other side of this week's new episode. There's just so much to share. I probably should have just done a whole solo episode about this new transition and journey, but I'm grateful for the direction my life is taking. I'm grateful for the direction the show is taking, and just so happy to re-air and re-share this conversation with Lauren. She is such a kind, sweet soul, and I loved connecting with her and really hearing about her process, creating the journal, the role that manifestation has played in her life, joy, gratitude, and so much more. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Lauren. So you created this really beautiful manifesting journal, and I just would love to know, where it started and how it started, and even just what that journey has been like creating it.
So for me, really, this journal was born out of a necessity for me. So after I started getting really into and studying a lot of manifestation principles and law of attraction principles, and I got really, really interested in, how our thoughts can become things and how our thoughts create our reality. So once I started to get really, really deep into that world and learning more about it and seeing how it was transforming my own life and mindset, I thought, wouldn't it be great if there was a journal I can write in daily that would help me set my intentions, declare to the universe what I am manifesting right now. And it'd be a journal that was really simple and beautiful and had some prompts, so that way I knew exactly what I should be focusing on and writing about every morning and evening. So I turned to Google and Amazon, and I couldn't find anything I liked. So I really just started creating my own journal. I had just a regular old notepad I bought at Target, and I just started playing around with different powerful daily writing prompts. And I just kind of played around with what really felt right to me, what suited me. And what I really came to a big realization is that I really wanted to focus a lot on the feeling. So because one of the really important parts in manifestation is really tapping into the feelings that you will have after you manifest your burning desire. So what's really important to do then is to act and assume the feeling of the wish already being fulfilled. So as you'll notice with the I Am Journal, a lot of these daily writing prompts are centered around okay, so how did this make you feel? Or how will you feel if you take these aligned actions every day? So really just going back to your question, it was really just born out of a necessity for me because I couldn't find anything I was looking for. And so I decided to create it. And after I created it for myself and I got in a really good groove with my journaling routine, I thought, you know what, if I'm enjoying this, I bet other people would enjoy it too and find a lot of value in it in their own spiritual journey, their manifestation process, and just to help transform their mindset. So that's really how it came about.
That's amazing. I read, I believe it's on your website for the journal, you stopped looking and started creating. I think that's a quote of yours. And I feel like that's so right in line with just the power of manifestation and the law of attraction too. It's this idea of looking inward for the answers as opposed to, looking outward into the external environment. And everything that you're seeking and the answers you're looking for are all already within you. And so I just love that you really saw a need, for yourself, and really started putting pen to paper and creating something that is really powerful. And I have no doubt it's going to and has already really impacted and changed, the way people approach their day-to-day life, but also the dreams that they have for themselves moving forward.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate all the compliments there. And absolutely, like you said, so I launched the journal on September 25th, 2017. So it hasn't been around all that long. As of the time we were recording this interview, it's only been around for just about 2 months now.
Yeah.
And already the response has been so amazing. It's just been so fulfilling to know that I've been able to create something that's really making an impact in people's lives the same way that it made an impact in my own. And this is actually something, it's so like this again just proves the power of your mind to create your reality. So as I was playing around with different writing prompts for the I Am Journal, and throughout the whole creation process, when I was going back and forth with my book designer on some things, I was still journaling daily. And I set my burning desire, which is basically like the intention you want to manifest. I set that to feel supported by the universe and to help a limitless amount of people with the I Am Journal. And every night, and this is part of one of the exercises I walk people through in the evening ritual part of the I Am Journal, is every night I want you to visualize what it felt like to experience your burning desire that day. So I would sit there in silence and I'd meditate on this for a few minutes before I would put the pen to paper, and in my mind I would visualize, it's just so clear to me, I visualize all of these people posting pictures of themselves writing in the journal, sharing the journal on Instagram, sending me putting comments on Instagram posts about how much they love it, how it's transforming the way they're thinking, and it's making them much more joyful. And seriously, it is coming to fruition. And it's just
cool.
Oh my gosh, it's such a beautiful, fulfilling feeling, and I think sometimes if you're sitting on an idea that you think could really impact people's lives and change people's lives, and you may have some fear or resistance to putting it out there and putting yourself out there too, right? Because something like this is your baby and you're so close to it, you're so attached to it, and you just want it to be loved by everyone, right? If you're going to put all this energy and love into it. And it's just really, really beautiful. And it's just a beautiful reminder that, to anyone listening to this, if you have something within you that you just know, that you just feel deep down inside other people should have, and it would bring you so much joy to bring into the world, do it. If it's coming from the right intention to want to serve others, and you put the intention on providing a lot of value to others, and that's really what you're looking for in exchange, is you want to feel rewarded from helping others, you're gonna feel like you've won. You're gonna be successful, because it's all about, again, it just goes back to why you're doing this in the first place, and it's to serve others. And so it's just really beautiful. It's coming full circle.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. And that's so amazing. And I think it goes back to setting that vibration for yourself. And when you were talking about how you sit and you're meditating on what you wanted it to feel like once the journal was out there and touching people, and other people had the opportunity to experience what you've been experiencing, I think you sort of set that vibration for the journal and for yourself. And just think it's so powerful. What I wanted to ask you though, too, as you were talking about that, is it kind of sounds like, in a way, while you were creating the journal, you were sort of a guinea pig for yourself, in the sense that, you were creating the prompts and developing, everything from start to finish. Did you ever find, maybe there was a prompt or something that just did not get you to the space where you needed to get to? And what was that process like?
So as I was, going back to what you said, looking within for answers, right? Like seeing, just determining what felt right to me, what transform my mindset in the best ways possible. I actually did a lot of research into other people's books on this topic, just immersing myself in this whole world and trying to and I have a notebook full of handwritten notes that I actually took from a lot of these books and then at the end of the day, though, I still wanted to create something that was my own, but still based on time-tested manifestation techniques. Because if they worked for people 1,000 years ago, they really hold true nowadays too. And I think that's something that's so beautiful that this practice has totally transcended time. And yeah, so throughout the process, I actually would start in meditation first before a journal. And I've since kind of flipped that in my morning routine where now I prefer to journal and then meditate on that. Because what I was finding is when I was meditating, I would kind of come out of it and want to explore more about how that meditation made me feel and how I felt before I meditated versus after. But I found that really didn't propel my mindset forward and prime my mindset in the way that I wanted it to for that day. So my early renditions of the I Am Journal actually were more focused on, how did you feel before you meditated? How did you feel after you meditated? I just naturally gravitated to focusing on more just specific priming your mindset for the day, starting with attention, starting with alignment, tapping into that joy. Like you said, your vibrational energy is so important, not only for, if you're able to tap into your own joy and find your own joy and make those choices to think and act differently to bring you more joy in your life, your joy is such a high vibrational energy to put out to the universe, and like attracts like, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can probably look around at your circle of friends and you probably notice a lot of similarities in some of your closest friends and yourself, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's no coincidence. So the same principle applies to whatever you want to manifest. So your vibrational energy must match that of what you're seeking to attract. So if you're coming from a place of coming from a place of lack, feeling like, oh, I'm not making enough money, or, I don't like my job, I want to change this about my life, I'm feeling tired all the time or whatever, the universe is going to respond in kind to that. It's going to match the energy that you put out there because you're not holding yourself up to a higher expectation. Right? If you're just saying, I am this, and it's a negative affirmation, you'll start to believe yourself after a time because
absolutely.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, so it's just something to be really, really mindful of. And actually, as I'm sure you could probably guess from the name of the journal being the I Am Journal, I'm obviously very, very big on the power of I am.
Oh, which is
Because
huge.
oh
Huge.
my gosh, yes, the words you put after your I am absolutely become your reality. I mean, you think about anything that you've wanted to accomplish for yourself in your own life, you have to be so positive and so certain in that declaration for it to happen. Because if you let doubt creep in, then it's not going to happen for you, or it may not happen as easily or as fast as you want it to.
Yeah. And I can only pull from my own life experiences, but I think it's about transcending that doubt also. And this summer, when I was studying for the bar exam, it was my second time studying for it. And I really made a very conscious effort to really stay and remain in a place of positivity and joy, although joy was a little bit more difficult during that studying period, but really tried to stay in a really positive, uplifting space. And so when I would meditate, and it wouldn't be every day, I would try and do it a couple of times a week when I would really start to feel my anxiety reach a level that I'm not comfortable with. I would imagine and visualize what it would feel like to go through the exam and feel really good and have really good positive days, and then what the period after would feel like. And then I really spent a lot of time visualizing what that moment would be like when I passed, when I found out that I passed. And it's so incredible how when you place yourself in that positive space, and even if you don't believe it right away, because I think it's only human nature to come from that space at first of, oh, this won't happen, or I can't do it, or I'm not you just come from a space of lack, I think, almost naturally, given the society that we live in right now. The more you work at it and you practice and you visualize yourself in the space and around the people and really feeling what you want to feel, it's amazing how your mindset just totally changes. And so the whole time you were talking, I wish you could see me, but I just kept nodding my head up and down because everything you
I'm nodding
said
right now the whole time as you're talking.
everything you said is so spot on. And I love the aspect of the journal, which is the I am. There's this one mantra and this one song in Kundalini yoga that one of my teachers that I really like plays all the time. And it says, I am bountiful, I am blissful, I am. And I honestly play that whenever I am feeling in a space of lack. And it's amazing how you repeat those words, and it just, it changes your brain chemistry. It really, really does. So I connect with everything that you're talking about without a doubt.
Absolutely. And one exercise that I learned from Wayne Dyer, one thing that he was a huge proponent of was, in addition to, really talking a lot about the power of I am and those affirmations being really, really positive and being stated in the present tense. So instead of saying I am in the process of becoming a successful entrepreneur, he was really big on making them in the present moment. So that way you would, again, assume the feeling of the wish already being fulfilled. Because if you're coming, like you were just talking about, if you're visualizing yourself excelling at something, you are going to think, feel, and act totally different because you've raised your vibrational energy, and you will take the actions necessary to make sure that that does happen for yourself in your life.
Yeah, it's that idea of trying versus being, I think. So many of us say, we're trying to be successful, we're trying to have a positive outlook, but if you just change it and you reframe it as, I am successful, I do have a positive outlook, just like you're saying, moving it to the present, it completely changes the whole thing just changes. What does manifestation mean to you?
So manifestation means to me that you really have the power and the choice to make your life exactly how you want. And I think this is something that once you tap into that, and like you said, you noticed a big difference when you started those visualization exercises and those I am affirmations, and you notice a huge difference in your mindset and performance. So I think there's something just so beautiful to think that we're given this amazingly powerful mind. Everything is a choice. Joy is a choice. I'm sure we'll talk more about that later, obviously. Our thoughts absolutely become our reality. You can create the life that you want, but you have to make those choices to think differently, to feel differently, to act differently, to really train your mindset. And what I think is unique too is that your mindset, you have to work it like any other muscle, right? It's not like a set it and forget it type thing. Like I kind of refer to the I am journal as like your spiritual gym buddy, where it's like it's going to hold you accountable daily to get your workout in. Because if you don't continue if you're not constantly priming your mindset every morning and reprogramming your subconscious before you go to sleep at night with some more journaling, if you're not constantly doing that, then, not only will you lose any progress that you've made in your mindset, but it's not going to be as sharp. We always need reminders of exactly how powerful and how capable we are, because it is easy if you have a bad day or just kind of a bad week or just kind of like a month where you're feeling down. It is easy to kind of get like sucked into all these emotions and just kind of like take on more of a victim mentality and be like, oh, why is this happening to me? And I feel like Tony Robbins has a great phrase about it. It's like, life isn't what happens to you. Life is what happens for you. And I think when you realize that like you are absolutely responsible for your own happiness and generating whatever will bring you the most joy in your life, that's the moment your entire life changes.
Yeah, I think it's so easy to forget too how powerful each one of us really are. And I think so many of us are just now starting to really realize how powerful we are and step into that power and step into that authenticity. And really, I think, I don't know, it feels like an age of reclaiming that for ourselves. And so when you were talking about how it's a choice, I think, and then you started talking about this a little bit too, it's about claiming complete responsibility for your life. And that means moving out of that victim consciousness and realizing all of the great things in your life are because of you. And all of the not so great things in your life are also because of you. But because it's because of you, you have the power to transform it. And I love the word transform because I think it holds a different power than just saying change or shift or make something different happen. Because I think it gives us the knowingness that we have the power to really switch things up for ourselves. And, regardless of maybe the state you're in right now and whatever it might be, you have the tools within you. And so I just love what you said about how it's a choice. And yeah, just like any muscle, I think it's a workout for your mind. If you step on the treadmill for the first time in a year, do you really think you're going to run that mile in 8 minutes? Highly doubtful. At least that wouldn't be the case for me.
Right.
So you really have to work at it and pace yourself and set mini goals along the way, just like you would if you're training for anything. And so I think it's a great point of reference for people too. When did you really start learning about these tools and manifestation and the law of attraction?
So I really started becoming pretty fascinated by it a couple years ago. So a couple years ago, I became a mother, and after that, I mean, I know it sounds so cliche to say, but your life absolutely changes. And it changes in so many amazing, beautiful ways. But what I also wasn't expecting for myself is it can make you feel a little bit lost when you become a parent for the first time, because you really do say goodbye to your former self who, would have all the time in the world to read as much as you wanted or to always, go for walks and things like that. Like your life, the moment you bring a new life into the world, your life revolves around this new life. And it's a beautiful, amazing thing. But what I found myself struggling with is, I found myself feeling really, really guilty for wanting more for my life than changing diapers.
Yeah.
And whenever I would feel like this urge and this tug to, further my spiritual journey and serve people, I didn't know it'd be the journal at the time, but I just felt this calling where I felt like, I'm meant to do more than what I've already done in this life. And I feel like having a child too, it also made me really conscious of what type of parent I wanted to be. Because I think when you look back at, some of your earliest memories with your parents, it's not about the words that they said to you or the things that you did with them. It's always comes back to how they made you feel. And I wanted to be this really positive, upbeat mom who was a joy to be around. I wanted my children to be raised with that type of joyful energy. And so that's when I really started to take a much closer look at the concept of, manifestation and law of attraction, because I love the idea of you have the power to transform your mindset and set it to a place where you can tap into joy much more easily, prime your mindset to, set yourself up for having an amazingly wonderful, positive day. And I liked the idea of having some tools to give me that.
That's amazing. For all of us, I think we get to this space based upon some sort of transition in our lives. At least that's kind of what I'm gathering the more I sort of study and listen to different people. Did you grow up with this level of spirituality, or did you find it came later in your life?
I didn't grow up with it. And actually, my husband was the first one to start on his spiritual journey of the two of us.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because I feel like the more people I talk, like you said, the more people you talk to, there's some sort of like moment of impact or some event that takes place that propels them, that piques their curiosity, propels them down their spiritual path. And my husband started it many years ahead of me, and he was always trying to encourage me to listen to Wayne Dyer videos and introduce me to his books, and I just wasn't ready. I had this resistance to it for some reason, and I just had like I would try it and I just had trouble connecting to the material. But as he reminded me, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
when I was ready, when I was really seeking it and really hungry for it, I absolutely found the material that was very accessible to me as I started on my spiritual path. And it just grew from there.
That's so
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, I find too that the things we're most resistant to are the things that we need and really seek out or desire the most, which is so interesting too, because I think for most people, when you think about things that maybe you're craving in your life and maybe you're not even conscious of it, but you don't maybe expect for there to be that level of resistance. So it's so interesting because I had that level of resistance myself. And it's interesting it was your husband who had sort of tapped into it first, because for me, it was my dad. And my dad started many years before me. And I remember thinking, what the hell is he doing? What is he talking about? You sort of think, okay, like the man's gone a little loopy. He's probably listening to this
Right.
podcast right now going, thanks, Sid, for like declaring that on your podcast. But it's true. And I feel like there's always somebody in your life who introduces you and you can dip your toe into the water. And if it feels great, that's your moment to jump in. But if it's a little bit later, that's okay too. But I do think we all really get there when we're ready and you can't force it, which it sounds like that's very much your experience also.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Have you yourself experienced any major transformations in your mindset since really implementing these tools in your life?
Oh my gosh, yes. And like you said, until you get into it, it does sound like a little woo-woo and it
Mm-hmm.
can I think it can turn some people off
Oh,
if you
totally.
go like, oh yeah, because it can come across as being, like you said, like how, your experience with your dad, seeing your dad get more into this and diving more into it. You can kind of get the side eye to some of this stuff and be really skeptical.
Mm-hmm.
But I think once you're ready, you will find the spiritual texts and authors and leaders who will speak to you that you really connect with, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, and so for me, really the biggest transformation has just been knowing that I have the ability to set my mindset for the day, tap back into joy much more easily, and just knowing that your reactions, your emotions, your thoughts are all a choice. And once I started to realize that and actually put that into action, I found that overall I would be able to start the day in a really, really positive place. And let me tell you, as a parent, you have the sleepless nights. They're really, really long days. They're rewarding, but they're incredibly long. It can be very taxing on your patients when, say, you only have like 2 or 3 hours of
Mm-hmm.
sleep the night before. So, yeah, so for me, just giving myself the tools and putting myself in the mindset, yeah, this is a choice. I have the ability to, despite how many hours of sleep I did or did not get the night before, I have the ability to still be a really positive role model for my children and just also to be, a really fun and joyful person to be around too,
Yeah.
because having it, bringing a child into your family does change things, because it does, you're not sleeping a lot, you're just really not yourselves for a while. You're really just in a survival mode for really almost the first year. Again, I think, I'm sure we can go more into this later, but I feel like a lot of people can also think like that, self-care can come across as being really selfish,
Mm-hmm.
but it actually is one of the most selfless things you can do, because when you think about it, if you're happy, if you're joyful, if you're in the state of joy more often than not, then you're going to be a much more pleasant person to be around. You're going to show up so much differently in your interactions with other people, and that will in turn, develop those relationships even further, and it really does lift the energy of everyone else around you. Like, I'm sure you probably noticed this in your circle of friends, or when you're in a really positive mood that morning, you can come into a meeting or go into a party and get into a conversation, and your energy, if you're coming from a really high vibe state, can absolutely raise the entire energy in that conversation with the people you're having.
Oh, absolutely. It's about the energy that you bring to the table, too. And the thought that popped up in my head while you were talking was, recognizing and knowing for ourselves that we really have the power to stay true to ourselves and who we are and the kind of person we want to be, regardless of maybe what's going on in the external environment. So I think so many people forget that. And I think it has the power to totally transform and change any given interaction once you really know that and acknowledge that. You talked a little bit about, priming your mindset for the day. Does that really begin and end with meditating and doing, the work with your journal?
Absolutely, it does. So when I wake up in the morning, very shortly after I wake up, I start journaling. And not only does that help me wake up because it, exercises, invokes your mental side and gets
Yeah.
your brain working for the day, but I find if I journal first thing and just get really, really clear intentions down on paper for how I want to feel that day. And so every morning with the I Am Journal, the first writing prompt in the morning is to state your burning desire statement. So this is really like the intention you want to manifest. And it's
Mm-hmm.
all about evoking that feeling, right? So it's not just saying, I am a successful entrepreneur. Like I said, my burning desire statement still to this day right now in the journal I'm still working through, my copy of the I Am Journal, it's still, I have a burning desire to feel supported by the universe and help a limitless amount of people with the I Am Journal. So that is the first thing that you write down in the morning is like, what is my intention? What do I want to bring into my life more than anything else right now? And so that really just sets the tone for like, this is what I am working for today. And then I also just guide you through like, what are the 3 intentional actions you take a day to attract it? So again, sometimes it's not talked about a lot in the woo-woo space, but you do have to take action, right? You can't just
Yeah.
sit there and declare it and expect it and say, okay, well, I'm going to be a millionaire by tomorrow because I told the universe I wanted to be a millionaire
Yeah.
and I expect it. It does not work that way. You still have to take
Yeah, I was
action.
gonna say, I think that's a huge misconception about manifesting. Is I think a lot of people think you can just sort of like stand there and declare, I'm gonna do this or I want to feel this way or whatever it would be, but you actually have to do the work. And I don't think a lot of people maybe really realize that.
Yeah, it's not talked about as much because,
Yeah.
it does feel like a little bit more cerebral. And I think what's so beautiful about the spiritual world is that it does like evoke the emotions a lot, which is so beautiful and so important. Obviously, we talked a lot about the importance of
Mm-hmm.
feelings and making a choice to feel in a way, how that helps really supercharge your manifestation powers. But I think more than anything, and it's not just looking at them as tasks like to-do lists, but more like taking action from alignment. So I always write down the 3 actions I get to take. And I think that's also an important like kind of way to frame your mindset, because if you say, oh, I get to take these, then it's like, wow,
Mm-hmm.
isn't this such a blessing that I have time today to make this impact on others by doing these 3 things, or to move the needle forward on manifesting my burning desire by doing these 3 things today. So just again, taking those actions from alignment and making sure that those 3 actions are directly in line with what you want to attract into your life. So I think that's huge.
Yeah, that's a really wonderful point. For anybody that's listening and maybe they're not familiar with the term alignment or what it means to be in alignment, what does that really mean and look like for you?
So to me personally, alignment is when I feel connected to source. So whatever higher power you believe in, or the universe is often used like interchangeably with, source, creator, whatever. So for me, those feelings are a few things. So to me, when I'm in alignment, I feel like I'm coming from a place of love where I'm giving love, I'm showing love, I'm able to be more compassionate and more empathetic to others, and not just to others, but to myself as well, right? Because we're
Mm-hmm.
all human, we're going to make mistakes, and it's important not to, beat yourself up for too long. And then it also comes from feeling this sense of joy, because, I feel like joy is really our birthright. Like, everything that we want to make happen for ourselves really comes down to like how it's going to make us feel. Like we don't, if you want to be a successful entrepreneur, it's likely not just because you like looking at tall stacks of money, right? It's because of the feeling of freedom, or you love to always challenge yourself, or you just want that financial abundance, and that feels like that gives you more choices in your life. Say if you want to travel or have more flexibility. So again, just everything we want for our life does come back from that feeling. And most of the time, the feelings that people want to invoke in their lives are feelings of joy. So love, joy, and I would also say abundance too, because, we live in an abundant universe. Again, like there's abundance all around us. There is always more out there for you to have.
Yeah, that's a beautiful definition.
Yeah, so those are the three feelings that are what alignment feels like to me.
For me, it's very similar. It's when I feel in a really good, positive, uplifted space, and where I feel like my thoughts and emotions really reflect, those three words you use too. And I think it's only really been within the last year that I've really started to feel like I've moved into that space, or have been maybe just more aware of what it takes to get to that space. So I think for a lot of people, it's either unfamiliar or doesn't feel maybe accessible for them. And I don't know, but I also feel like the journal that you've created has really maybe broken down that barrier to entry a little bit. I mean, what do you feel? Do you feel similar in the sense that maybe it's opening the window to people who maybe have been unfamiliar with these topics and these tools?
Absolutely. I'm so glad you brought this up, because that was certainly one of my intentions when I was creating this, because I didn't want people to feel like how I did at first when I first became really interested in applying manifestation principles to my daily life and to get better at manifesting. So I wanted to create these really powerful daily writing prompts, so that way people aren't spending time wondering, oh, what should I be writing about? They can just simply dive in and do it, because I design it in a way where it should take you 15 minutes or less total every day. And that's for doing the morning ritual page and the evening ritual page. It's like 5 prompts on each page, just a few lines for each. Another comment I heard from actually a spiritual life coach, I was talking to her about the journal the other day, and she was like, wow, I love this because I always tell my clients to journal. They're going to find their truth on the paper. Like that's the best way to, really reprogram your mindset, like all the things that I Am Journal is about, right? And she said a lot of my clients have resistance to this because they feel that they're going to do it wrong, or they start and they get stuck, and then they feel, oh, I must be doing it wrong because, thoughts are just flowing out of me onto this paper. And so I want to give, like almost just like a really simple, easy way to apply these manifestation techniques into your life.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think I love the fact that it's designed to take 15 minutes or less, because I think part of that barrier too is people think they don't have the kind of time that's needed. And I think, listen, for every person it's different. For one person, it's their daily ritual that helps them get to and feel like they're in a space of alignment and where they need to be. Maybe that's 10 minutes. And then maybe for someone else, it's 3 hours. And so I think, it's also giving people that kind of shorter time frame. I think it allows it to feel more accessible and like anybody can do it, which is the truth. Anybody can do it. But I think for so long, people have really felt, and that's kind of, it goes back to the premise of my podcast, which is for so many people, I think joy feels like it's not accessible for them. And maybe it's reserved for a select few. And we kind of see, the way other people live their lives, and whether, they're in a state of joy all the time or they just portray that state of joy. And I think I just really love the journal and just how it breaks down that barrier to entry and is really showing people that, hey, you can do this too.
Absolutely. Well said. Thank you.
So I would love to talk to you about joy because it is, we are talking on the Seek the Joy podcast. For you, what does joy really feel like?
To me, I think ultimately joy really comes down to 2 different feelings, one of excitement and also one of peace. And I think it's so interesting how two, seemingly polar opposite feelings can coexist under like one umbrella of like the definition of joy. And I think that's what's so beautiful. I think joy feels differently to different people and maybe at different times in their lives too, right?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I remember, this maybe about a month ago, we had a really unseasonably warm day here in late fall in the Midwest, and we took our children out for a walk in the woods at a park nearby. And I mean, I just had this moment where I was literally almost moved to tears because I just felt like such a sense of joy and peace, and just seeing our children experience the wonder of being outside in the woods and, exploring nature. And just, it brought me like such a sense of like, I had a huge smile on my face, but at the same time I felt like, oh my gosh, I could totally start looking like a crazy woman any minute now, just starting to cry. But I'm like, told myself like, okay, keep it together. You don't want to be like that mom who's like, oh my gosh, this is such a beautiful family moment. But it was. And so for me, like, joy is just like I just had like a really like a great emotional response to being outside with our children, enjoying that time with them. But joy doesn't always move me to tears.
But I think joy can, really move you to tears. And that's interesting because I think the moments for me when I have felt and feel the most joyful, it really kind of is those moments where I move to tears. And I'm a very highly emotional person. I sort of cry at the drop of a hat, not always because I'm sad, but it's really more if something has really moved me or touched me, my default is to cry. Yeah. And so it was funny when you were talking about, you don't want to be that crazy mom,
right?
That's crying over everything. And I'm thinking, well, I don't want to be that crazy lady that's just crying over everything. But it's so interesting how you said excitement and peace, because I think that peace of mind, peace of body, peace of soul, peace of heart, whatever it looks like for someone, it plays such an important and integral role in joy. And for me, I guess I've sort of been on a joy exploration with this podcast. And so it's so interesting to hear, just how for every person it's different. And I think like you were saying too, it's not cookie cutter. And so I love that it's really those moments. And I think those are sort of really invaluable moments in your life as a mom, especially too. It's really those moments that just really make you feel the most joyful.
Absolutely. And I find one thing I try to be really mindful of doing even more so these days is just being present more, right?
Mm-hmm.
Putting away the phone. Like, we're so addicted to our phones and our devices. And to me, I feel so much happier when I'm not looking at a screen. I mean, I love, I absolutely love the community on Instagram. Like, it's amazing to connect with them, and that brings me a tremendous amount of joy. Don't get me wrong. But there's something that's so beautiful about, especially for me as a parent, be able to be away from my phone for a few hours and just be present with my children and experience life, as they're experiencing new things. That's really beautiful for me. And I think this goes for all people. And I think that's one thing. I don't know if you're a regular journaler, meditator. It sounds like you probably are, but I feel like those moments where you're really present and tuned in probably bring you tremendous amounts of joy as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. For me, those moments have really recently looked like this long walk that I really try and take at least 5 days a week. It doesn't always happen, but when it does happen, I don't respond to phone calls, text messages. I'm not on Instagram. I'm walking for the 45 minutes, and maybe I'll listen to a podcast or some music. And sometimes I don't listen to anything. And it's those moments where you're sort of checked out, but checked into yourself, I think is the best way to put it. That really, for me at least, really recharge my battery and make me feel more connected to myself. You need those times to really feel more like you. And I completely connect to what you're saying. It's so important to be present and to just really reconnect to yourself that way.
Absolutely. I love the example you shared. I think for a lot of people, getting out in nature and getting fresh air, I think that helps them make that shift in a big way too.
Yeah. So you're so busy. I mean, you have so much going on in your life. How do you really find joy in your day-to-day life, I guess, just given everything that you have going on?
I think it's just finding joy. Again, it goes back to being present and finding joy in the present moment. And because right now I'm in a season in my life where life is really incredibly busy, especially with two young kids. And so I think just being more accepting and being more go with the flow. So for example, last night I fully intended on doing some more work on the I Am Journal when I was home in the evening, and our daughter was having the hardest time going to sleep. So she didn't go to sleep until probably close to like 9:30 last night, which is pretty late for a 5-year-old to be awake.
Yeah.
But again, it's just kind of like, you know what, like I can never get this time back. She's not going to always want me in her bed snuggling her for a really long time and telling her more stories. So I think it's just embracing what you have available to you in the present moment. That's so important to finding joy in those, in your everyday life. Because I think if you're, always someone who's always like waiting for the next big thing or so focused on the next big thing you're working on bringing into your life, you're going to miss out on some really beautiful moments too. It's important to enjoy, every single step of the journey.
Absolutely. I think you really have to embrace what is happening for you and with you in that present moment. And I think it's that embracing and that accepting that really allows us to feel that joy too. I think so many of us feel and show a lot of resistance. So with your example, I mean, yeah, of course, you could have felt frustrated, that you couldn't do what you had set out to do, that night, but you made a different choice and chose to embrace, the present moment and the opportunity and the ability to spend that time with your daughter. And it goes back to what we've been talking about this whole time, just the mindset that you have for yourself and the choices that you make.
Absolutely. That's huge. Like once you realize and put into practice that joy is a choice you get to make every single day and in every single moment of your day, I mean, your entire life changes. That's how you can really find the joy and tap more into joy whenever you need to reconnect to that joyful feeling.
So in your own life, how do you really authentically show up, I guess, for yourself and for others too?
Yeah, I think for me, and I think a lot of other parents listening to this can probably relate to it, but you can feel really selfish for taking time out for yourself to do really anything for yourself. And so for me, one of the biggest things I've realized, and my husband helped me realize it too, is that if I don't get, my 10, 15 minutes every morning to journal and meditate, I'm just a different person. I'm not able to be as patient. I'm just not the same like joyful person that I like to choose to be more often than not. So I think for me is just realizing like, okay, what can I do every morning that will put me in a state of joy? And so I think just making that realization that, okay, it's actually not selfish for me to wake up earlier, even on the weekends, to make sure I can do this before the kids wake up, because that way I'll be the best version of myself for everyone else in my life that I'm going to be spending time with, and I'll make myself happier too.
Yeah, it's about taking that time for yourself. And we touched upon it a little bit earlier in our conversation, but I think that's such an important point that you made, that for so many people, that self-care feels so selfish. But like you said earlier, it's quite the opposite. The more time you take to tune into yourself and get yourself to a headspace and a space where you feel like I'm prepared, I'm ready, I have the tools to take on the day and be the best version of myself. I mean, listen, it really has an impact on you, but then it has I think an even bigger impact too on the people around you, because if you're showing up as the best version of yourself and being who you really are, it just is so impactful, and it changes just every dynamic and relationship in your life. So for someone who really wants to do what you've done and create something that they're passionate about and take the leap and stop looking and start creating as you have, what would be your biggest piece of advice?
Oh, just do it. Take the leap. I mean, because I feel like, you don't want to die with the music inside of you, right? Like if you have something, going back to what we were talking about earlier in the interview, if you have something that you just keep feeling so called to do, really tune into that and find a way to make it happen. And I feel like sometimes when people are experiencing like some fear and resistance around it, maybe it's just not the right time for them. Or maybe they're just looking for excuses, thinking like, oh, I don't have enough time to make it perfect. And I think that perfectionism kills a lot of dreams. And I am someone who is somewhat of a perfectionist. I can speak from experience on this, and also know too, like whatever you first put out there, it's not going to be perfect. You're going to look back at things like maybe some content you created or things like that, be like, oh, wow, I explain things totally differently now. But you just have to do it. Like there's no substitute for experience. And to prepare myself to launch the journal, I had to teach myself all of this online marketing stuff. Like I had to learn how to do Facebook and Instagram advertising and some of the really interesting, geeky behind the scenes things that go on there that you need to learn about. And I taught myself how to do everything, honestly, from listening to a lot of podcasts. But there's really just no substitution. Like you can listen to podcasts, watch videos, read blog posts, whatever, all day long. But there's no substitution for just getting in there. It's going to be messy at first. It's not going to be, not everything you're going to put out there is going to be perfect, but you get to start and you get to finesse it as you go along. But with that being said, like I'm super, super proud of the journal. It's absolutely the product I wanted to create. And it's been such a joy sharing it with other people.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really great advice. You can learn and teach yourself, and all of that is so important, but there's no replacing the doing aspect of it, and putting in that work. And some of it you have to learn as you go, which is definitely the case for me with this podcast. Yeah, you really learn as you go, and what you start with may not be what you have at the end, but that's okay. Don't let that hinder you or stop you from going for it. So what would you say is your biggest dream?
My biggest dream is I just have such a burning desire within me to impact as many people's lives as possible with the I Am Journal and whatever may come in the future, if there's other journals or whatever, however this evolves to serve other people. I just want to make a huge difference in people's lives and help them. Like you said, you make this whole mindset transformation much more accessible to people through the journal, breaking it down for them, because every single person can benefit from tapping into the power they have within them to create the life of their dreams. And it all starts with the choices you make with your mindset. So I'm just so wildly passionate about that. Like I can't even begin to describe like just the joy I feel, just the emails, the comments I get from people about how the journal is absolutely changing their lives. I had actually another mom reach out to me and saying that she was buying a copy for her daughter because she wanted to teach her daughter about the power of positive thinking. I just think that's so beautiful to know that, I didn't even think about it being used with children, but actually I had some other people reach out to me and like beg me, saying like, oh my gosh, if you were to do like a teen version of this, I think it would serve so many teenagers.
Oh my gosh, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, you think about the emotional roller coaster of like junior high and high school, like my goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And talk about really, teaching those tools and making those tools accessible, at a younger age and at a time where so much is happening to you and around you. And God, that would be so powerful.
I know. And even with our 5-year-old daughter, like we do I am affirmations with her regularly too. And it's really fun to do that with her. And I talk to her a lot about, it's all about the power of our choice. And, if you decide that you can do something, you're going to do it. I usually like relate it back to the little engine that could story to make it, accessible for her to get. Yeah. But I don't think you can really start too early with ingraining that in them to know like this, your thoughts create your reality.
Yeah. Well, the possibilities are endless, and you've already touched so many people, and this has been such a great conversation. I just love that you really created this journal and implement the practices for yourself, and you are a living, breathing example of that all of this really works. And I just was so excited and so happy to have this conversation with you, because I think there are a lot of skeptics out there who hear about these things and read about these things, but don't think that they're going to work for them. And everyone needs evidentiary proof, it seems, and you are literally that proof. So I think what you've put out there is so incredible, and it's really all about that mindset.
Thank you so much for having me on. This has been such a great conversation. I really appreciate it.
It has been. It really has. Before we go, where can everyone find the I Am Journal and find you on social media and everything?
Yes, so I am at the I Am Journal on both Instagram and Facebook, and pretty active on Instagram, so that's definitely a really good place to connect with me on there. I love interacting with people on there and posting a lot of content, quotes, things like that. And, that's how we got to meet, and I'm so grateful for that.
It is, yes. Me too. Oh my gosh, me too. And then where can they purchase the I Am Journal?
So it is available on Amazon.com. So if you search for the I Am Journal on Amazon.com, you will see it. And I also have the link in my Instagram bio as well, too, where you can get a closer look at the inside of the journal and then be able to purchase it through Amazon through that link as well.
Perfect. Okay, so all of that information will be included in the show notes. So I just think it is so powerful, and it's such a powerful tool. And I think especially moving into a new year, 2018, and just really setting intentions for that year. And I think so many people are going to want to begin that manifestation process, and what better tool. So this has been amazing. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. I'm so happy we connected, and we could probably talk for another hour.
Oh, no doubt. Absolutely.
Without a doubt. So this has been amazing. Thank you.
Thank you, Sydney. I appreciate it.
It's so cool and interesting to be able to listen to an interview from over a year ago and hear how much I've grown and we've grown, and how much my voice has changed, and how much more comfortable I think I've become in my voice and in sharing my voice. And so, I don't know. I'm just really happy that I decided to re-air and reshare this episode. I think it's really coming at such a perfect time too, with the decision I've made to really just start to share more about my healing journey and more about my spiritual journey. And so anyway, I'm excited to bring you along for that ride. It's going to officially kick off next week with a conversation with my friend and mentor and third generation healer and intuitive, Aiden Chase, and it's going to be a really fun conversation. Before we go, I've got to share with you the iTunes review of the week, because I did say I would share it in the outro, which, by the way, it took me a good 10 minutes to figure out what this is called at the end of the show. Like, I was sitting here going, what is this called? It's not an exit. What is it called? Oh, it's an outro. So this week, the iTunes review of the week comes from Lauren Untangled, and it says, Official Joy Seeker. Ooh, I love that. It says, if I could have this on a t-shirt, I'd wear it proudly. Sydney has reinvented the spirit of joy in a way that feels authentic, true, and full of purpose. Thank you for sharing your gift. Okay, wow, Lauren, thank you so much for this review of the show. I'm so glad you found it. I'm so glad you're loving it. I'm so glad that it's bringing a little bit of joy into your life. And guys, if you have been enjoying this podcast, if you want to support my work on this show, support this podcast, I would be so grateful if you left us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, or really wherever it is that you listen to podcasts. And when you do, take a screenshot of your review, send it to me, Sydney at seekthejoypodcast.com. I will send you our guide for infusing more joy into your life, some Seek the Joy podcast stickers, and it's a really great way for us to connect outside of the show, and for me to get to know you a little bit and hear about your journey and what you've been up to. And if you're looking for some other ways to support Seek the Joy podcast, support this show, I would be so grateful if you shared it with your friends and your family or your coworkers or anyone that you think might enjoy the podcast and its message. My goal is really to uplift as many voices as I can, and the best way to do that is to share the show with as many people as possible. So I would be so grateful if you shared the podcast, share your favorite episode, connect with us too on social media. We're on Facebook and Pinterest and Instagram and Twitter at Seek the Joy Podcast everywhere. And I'll include the information for our social media pages in the show notes for this episode as well. And I think that's it. I think we are officially closing out this week's new episode. I hope you guys are well. I hope the first month of 2019 brought you so much joy and growth and opportunity. I know it definitely did for me. And I think I'm signing off, but I hope you enjoyed this episode. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you right back here next week for another Seek the Joy Tuesday.